Elena, and of course, lots of headlines on Nicolas Sarkozy's first big rally over the weekend.
Yes, he's on all the front pages. What mattered most for Le Figaro in that rally was the defence of a certain idea of France. That's their headline. What they mean by that, more than anything, are the repeated implicit references to General de Gaulle, the first president of the Fifth Republic. They've headlined their editorial today, The Shadow of the General. Now, for Le Figaro, that means two important things, really. De Gaulle, for them on the right, is a kind of iconic figure, and by evoking him repeatedly, Sarkozy is trying to say that only he can fill his shoes, that he's got that sort of presidential gravitas that Hollande just doesn't have, that he is, if you like, up to the serious crisis, the serious challenge of leading France out of this crisis. There's also a kind of nationalistic reference here that is associated with de Gaulle, who of course led the French resistance, and Sarkozy had a lot to say yesterday about his love of France, something that, according to Le Figaro, that François Hollande never mentions, that it's still a thorny subject for the left, according to them. He mentioned France 88 times, apparently, during that speech, so it got by far the most mentions of any other word. And he also referenced de Gaulle's love of referendums. He called several when he was president. And, of course, Sarkozy also announced plans for one, if he's re-elected, last week, which would, of course, be about limiting the rights of the unemployed to claim benefits.
And sacrifice probably isn't the most popular thing with voters, but it was, like you mentioned, quite populist in tone, this speech. It was about appealing to all French people, so he said.
It was. Le Parisien's headline today is Appel au peuple. Sarkozy, an appel au peuple, calls on the people. That's a word, people, that he keeps on using. He's trying to paint himself as the president of everyone, precisely because he's got this image of being a president only of the elite. So he's desperately trying to move away from that. The paper says he essentially is trying to campaign not on his record of the last 5 years, but on trying to present a new face, a new self, even trying to present himself as a candidate of almost the opposition, as a candidate. He's, of course, very much the underdog in the polls, and he's trying to use that almost as a good thing. He's trying to use that as a selling point. He said to voters yesterday, help me, I need your help me so we can bring France together and help it succeed. So he is, if you like, playing on how he's doing so badly, and that's he's kind of trying to present himself as outside of the system, which is sort of ironic for someone who's been in power for 5 years.
And I imagine this can't have gone down too well on the left.
No, indeed not. Libération is exactly mocking, really, this tendency of the man known as the bling-bling president, the man associated with millionaire friends at dinner in one of Paris's most expensive restaurants the night of the last election. Now that he's trying to paint himself as one of the ordinary people, they can't resist having a laugh. Their headline this morning is C'est l'élite finale, which is a play on words on C'est la lutte finale, like the final fight, which is classically the lyric of the communist anthem, L'Internationale. So they say in their editorial, essentially, that this is ridiculous, that it's almost beyond satire that he should try and present himself as a man of the people when his policies for the last 5 years have mostly just served to enrich the rich further with tax breaks and things like that. The communist paper L'Humanité is even more critical, as you might imagine. They've got Nicolas Sarkozy extremely hard to the right as a headline, and they say he now seems to be engaged in a kind of extreme right primary vote with Marine Le Pen, and it's not even clear which of them is doing best.
Trying to take votes away from the National Front.
Exactly. I mean, that's his that's the direction he's going in. Although La Croix does put out on its front page today that if his main target is her voters, trying to win them over, then he is actually winning that fight at the moment. The most recent polls show her 2 or 3% down, and those voting intentions going directly to Sarkozy, as the whole presidential race becomes much more about just two men. Until recently, we were talking about 4 candidates. Now, really, the polls show it closing down between Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande, really the only two who look like serious contenders now.
Still pretty big gap between the two, though, isn't there? All right, thanks very much, Elena, for that look at the French press. That's it for this half hour live from Paris. Do stay tuned to France 24. All the latest headlines coming up in just a few minutes.